Welcome to the first video of SFL 305. In this video, my goal or my intent here is to help give you a strong foundation for this course and come away with an understanding of why we care about data, why we care about asking questions. So funny enough, my first question is, why do you ask questions? If you think about over the course of a day or a week or your lifetime, all the questions you asked or will ask, it's because we want to know something. Maybe we're trying to learn something, or we're asking somebody questions because we want to get to know them better. Questions help us learn. They help us form relationships, help us understand the world around us. And obviously, the answers to those questions do matter, but I would argue that in many cases, the questions themselves are vastly more important. Questions often take us on a journey, and that kind of old ideal, right, that the journey matters more than the destination. That process or the journey we go through in asking questions can change us often for the better. As we've been starting Come Follow Me this year, focusing on Doctrine and Covenants, um, thinking a lot about Joseph Smith and the Restoration, and him going into the grove to ask questions, asking for forgiveness, asking which church he should join. It's really struck me how throughout the scriptures we are told to ask questions. You've got the Savior in John 16, right? Ask and you shall receive, or the famous James 1:5, if any of you lack wisdom, ask of God. Or Moroni at the end of the Book of Mormon, exhorting us to ask God. Or Christ when he visits the Nephites in Third Nephi, saying this multiple ways: ask and it shall be given you, seek and you shall find, knock. Everybody that ask receiveth, and everyone that seeketh findeth. So encouraging us, right, to ask questions, to seek out these answers. But when we think about asking questions, it's also important to keep in mind experiences like that of Oliver Cowdery. So he wanted to help translate the Book of Mormon, and it didn't go very well. And this was some feedback that the Lord gave him through revelation. And he says, and this is the Lord saying to Oliver Cowdery, "Behold, you have not understood. You've supposed that I would give it unto you when you took no thought, save it was to ask." So he's like, you asked, but you didn't take any additional thought. Behold, I say unto you, you must study it out in your mind. Then you must ask me if it be right. So all this is to say, right, asking questions, yes, super important. But a part of asking questions is putting in the effort, going through some process and some learning to ask that question. If we just go to God and say, teach us how to um, do this thing, to design let's say a car that um, is reliable, and or a vehicle that is reliable and safe and has no negative impact on the planet. Right? He's not going to just give that to us. We got to put in the effort and some work ourselves. And then he's going to help answer those questions as we put in the effort. So that brings us all to science and to data and what we're going to be learning in this class. That revelation obviously is a key way of learning, and I would say the most important way of learning. But I'm going to argue that science is an important way of learning too, and that it plays a role in us taking thought or studying it out, putting in the effort ourselves, so that then God can add the revelation on top, to put us or guide us in the right direction. Elder Uchtdorf here on campus over a decade ago um, came and talked about the importance of discovering truth, including through revelation, but he highlighted that it's important that we also seek truth through logic, reason, and scientific inquiry. Um, that's what we're going to be doing in this class. And I sincerely hope that as we work with real data, that you'll strive to combine those two, the skills that you're going to be learning here in class, but also combine that with revelation and asking God to help guide and direct you as well as we work on different projects and whatnot. So I want to give a historical example then of why data matter. and why they can change the world for the better. Um, I love this story. It's about Ignaz Semmelweis. So he was, if I remember right, originally from Hungary, but when he was alive, the Austro-Hungarian Empire was a thing, and so Vienna was the capital of this whole vast empire. And he worked, eventually moved to Vienna and worked there at the General Hospital in the maternity ward. Now, something they noticed in the maternity ward was that there were these these two different actual parts of the maternity ward, and in one of them it was staffed by female midwives, and the other one was staffed by male doctors and medical students. And the death rate of the mothers and infants um, in the side that was staffed by the male doctors was 5 times higher. Right? And people recognize this. Like it became obvious just kind of to the public. And if I remember right, it was like on certain days, if you came to give birth on a Tuesday, you were in the midwife section. If you came on Wednesday, you were going to be with male doctors. And it was enough that women would, if they were going to labor, like on the day that they were going to have to be in the ward with the male doctors, they would try to hold off and wait so that they could be admitted on the next day when they could be cared for by the midwives. So as they noticed, right, this death rate that it was so much higher, that's data on its own, right? And they've got this data, and that drove some questions of, well, why? So Ignaz or Dr. Semmelweis started collecting data on the two different wards. And what he found in his data collection was that the midwives washed their hands. And the male doctors and the students, they were often doing things like practicing on cadavers, practicing different procedures, and then they would pause in that and go help and deliver a baby, and they wouldn't wash their hands in between. Now that sounds crazy to us, right? Like you've just been practicing on a cadaver, and you go and you help deliver this baby without washing your hands. But at that time, the prevailing theory was that disease was spread by smell, and washing your hands didn't necessarily, um, right, it didn't fit their prevailing norms or theories about how the world worked. Um, but his data suggested there was something there, and so he started pushing this idea of this importance of washing hands, and he got a lot of pushback. Um, a lot of people didn't appreciate what he was saying because it didn't, again, fit those theories. But eventually, the data won out and eventually contributed to the practices of washing hands. And later, we learned more about bacteria and viruses and those kind of things and why washing hands would make sense. But the key thing here is data made a difference and really saved people's lives. Now, the kind of data he's collecting, right? He's just watching. He's going through the maternity wards, he's observing what's going on, and drawing conclusions from that. The data that we tend to work with today are vastly more complex, which is why we need a whole class like this to help you learn how to work with data that are just much more complicated. This is just an example. This is called the AdHealth data set. They started their first wave in the mid 90s, and they've collected data on these kids who were teenagers in the 90s and continued over the years. At points, they collected data from their parents, even from other students at the schools they went to, from school administrators, and it's longitudinal, and there's thousands of these people. Initially, over 20,000. Right? And data like this are just so much more complicated than what Dr. Semmelweis was working with, and so we need skills and tools to be able to work with data like that. Um, the beauty about that data, or about data um, that's more complex than what Dr. Semmelweis was working with, is it can help us answer really hard questions. And this is one of the things that gets me most excited about in this class is when you look in the media, right? Maybe it's on TikTok or on a blog. I know that feels old school at this point, right? Or in online newspapers, news outlets, um, Instagram, whatever it is, you come across people talking about research. And data shows this, research says this. And those things are often really contradictory. A huge debate right now is, or over the past decade, is children of gay or lesbian parents. And some data saying those kids fare worse, some saying they do better. It's really complicated. Um, and with the skills that we're going to be learning in this class, you're starting to gain the skills to be able to kind of learn those things for yourself. Gain the skills that you could actually take data if it's available and you could run analyses yourself, um, and be a better evaluator of what you're seeing in the media as well. So I think these skills are really important there on kind of a philosophical, big picture kind of level. But the skills you're going to be learning in this class aren't just important, right, for helping you wade through the messiness of all the different questions and data and um, arguments that people are putting out there in the world. It's also very, very practical. So if you are thinking you're going to go to grad school in something like, let's say, marriage family therapy, or something related to research in marriage and family, or in human development, the skills you're going to be learning in this class are like the basic skills that grad students need to be ready to really be effective in working in a research lab. But if you're not planning to go to grad school, these skills are useful in getting a job. We've had students who from this class have used these skills in their jobs. I had a TA a few years ago. She'd taken the class and then TA'd for it. That she now is the data, oh, I forget her actual title, but she's the data analyst, data manager for a fairly large nonprofit in Austin, Texas. But I've had other students who use the things we learn in this class in jobs where they're a secretary or where they're in some sort of administration, or management role. So the skills we're going to learn here are just, they're very useful, and will help you, right, if you can market yourself or talk about them in strong ways, help you land jobs. Now, I want to end with this. This is a fairly common question or concern. What if you're bad at math, right? You don't see yourself as a numbers person, um, and that makes you really, really anxious about this class. Now, I'm going to say this in class too, probably more times than you wish I would, but it's okay. This class is designed for those who are coming in with no experience working with coding and with data and the ways that we're going to work with it. But even more so, it's designed for those who are uneasy and anxious about it. Um, the last math class I took, I was a junior in high school. I've never taken calculus or trigonometry. Um, I have discovered in myself, right, that I am numbers oriented, but I didn't think I was when I was in your shoes. I didn't think that was my kind of thing. But the thing here is that we're using the computer to do the math for us. Um, there's very little math we actually have to do, so it's okay. And let me share one more story. My wife was also, she was an SFL grad, back before it was SFL, was MFHD in those days, as an undergrad. And very much like the stereotypical school family life student, right? Not into math, not into data numbers. That was not her kind of thing. And a couple of years ago, she was thinking about going back to grad school. And so she said, I'm going to go take SFL 305. And she didn't take it from me. She took it from Dr. Weichel. But she's like, I'm going to go take that class, because if I could handle that class, I could handle grad school. She's like, I know I'm not going to like it. I'm going to hate it and it's going to be really hard, but I'm going to do it. So she signed up and she took the class and she loved it. She had so much fun and she's like, I didn't realize this is what working with data is like. right? I'm learning how to code and to clean the data, and I'm learning how to ask questions and how to answer those questions. And she really, really loved it. Now, I can't guarantee that all of you are going to have that same experience, but I have taught this class long enough now that I can guarantee you that there will be a lot of you that right now are thinking, I'm not really sure I'm going to like this. This doesn't seem like my kind of thing. But by the end of the semester, you're going to find that you like it. Now, if you're not one of those people, that's okay. Um, I guarantee you, you can get through this class. You can make it. So don't give up. Keep sticking with it, and you're going to make it. All right. We'll see you in class.